Here's a cheap way to expand your Xbox's storage. This Xbox Classic is making a comeback, but there's a catch. Also, there's some cool stuff coming to Game Pass. Let's discuss. Sable's gonna be on Game Pass this Thursday, and it's billed as a beautiful, Mobius-inspired 3D adventure game with shades of Breath of the Wild. So what does that mean? Mobius was the pseudonym for a very famous French artist, Jean Giraud, who was a super famous French cartoonist, comic book artist. He was known for creating these surrealist, kind of out there, cool sci-fi worlds. Stan Lee and Hayao Miyazaki have counted him as a great inspiration, someone that they look up to, and basically this game is an homage to his work. And if you look up Arzak, which is one of his most famous works, the cover of that compared to Sable is something you will immediately see similarities for. There's already 13 minutes of gameplay on IGN's channel for this, and it looks to be a mix of platforming, exploration, puzzle solving. There doesn't seem to be any combat, so if you're playing this game, you're probably playing it for two reasons. One, the art style, and two, the soundtrack. And what little I've heard of the soundtrack, it sounds amazing. It's beautiful. So if you're playing this game, you're playing it for two reasons. One, you really like the art style. Two, you really like the soundtrack. And together, I think that's a really potent combination for them. It looks gorgeous. What little I've heard of the soundtrack sounds beautiful, and it's definitely something I'll be checking out. Skatebird is also coming to Game Pass. This is gotta be the opposite of this beautiful, well thought out, artistically amazing game. Skatebird is exactly what it sounds like. You play as tiny little birds skating around on tiny little tech deck looking skateboards in tiny little skate parks. Now, this is obviously not gonna be bringing home any Game of the Year awards, but it's just hilarious, a la like a Goat Simulator or some funny game like that. I love the little animations of the birds just like flapping their wings and spazzing out as they like land these sick ass tricks. It's kind of more in line with like a Goat Simulator or just a silly, fun, chill, relaxing game like that. Will Tony Hawk make an appearance? Subnautica Below Zero is also coming to Game Pass, and if you aren't familiar with this is a sequel to Subnautica, which came out a couple years ago, and it's basically an open world survival game that takes place entirely underwater. It's gonna be coming to Game Pass on the 23rd, and basically, in the original game, the Subnautica, you are basically on this spaceship that crashes on this alien world in the middle of the ocean. So it's your job to survive, build a base underneath the ocean, and hopefully build up the technology to fix your ship and get off the planet. So you build bases, you explore the landscape, you discover new species, and you also have to survive. You have to make sure you're well fed, you're hydrated, and you're avoiding all of these nasty creatures trying to kill you. So the sequel takes place 2 years after the first game, and this time, it's really cold, hence Sub-Zero. There's also some land exploration in this one too. I was a really big fan of Ark Survival Evolved when it came to consoles. I really like the survival genre. I like the challenge. I like the creative aspect, getting to build your own bases and kind of put your own personal spin on that. I like this anxiety that you feel when you're traveling really far away from your base, you're looking for materials, you're discovering new things, and there's this ever-looming threat that this creature can just come out of nowhere, kill you, and ruin hours of progress. I love that. Full disclosure, if you don't like jump scares, do not play this game. There's a lot of moments where you're swimming around in the ocean, swimming around in the dark, and all of a sudden this spider, snake creature comes out of nowhere, grabs you in its jaws, and just totally shreks you. So if you're not a fan of jump scares, do not play this game. If you're not a fan of just scary environments in general, I'd say stay away from this game, but if you are, it's right up your alley. The first Subnautica was the first time I feel like I saw a trailer that featured YouTubers' quotes to act as reviews of the games. There was a quote from Forbes saying, "Oh, this game is amazing," but right after that, there was a quote from Markiplier who was like, "Oh yeah, I always have something new to discover in this game," and I just thought that was really funny. If you want to catch up on the first game before you dive into Subnautica Below Zero, they're both on Game Pass, so that's something that you can easily do. So during the Sony showcase, they announced a couple of really awesome exclusives, including Spider-Man, God of War Ragnarok, a new Wolverine game that's coming out, produced by Insomniac, and also a Knights of the Old Republic remake. Now, this was something that kind of hurt for me as an Xbox fan, because I remember the OG Xbox playing the original Knights of the Old Republic. I was there when the sacred texts were written. And it was just kind of a bummer to see that it was not gonna be coming to Xbox. But the more you look into this, the more questions start to arise. So PlayStation players on social media were putting Knights of the Old Republic as a flex against Xbox players, saying, oh, we have all these great exclusives coming out, putting it up there with Spider-Man 2 and God of War Ragnarok. But it's been confirmed that Knights of the Old Republic is going to be a timed exclusive. So after a year, it's going to be coming to Xbox consoles. Also, it's going to be available on PC when it releases for PlayStation, so it's not really a true exclusive in the same way Spider-Man and God of War is in that way. BioWare is not making this remake of Knights of the Old Republic. They're the ones that made the original game, they made all the Mass Effect games, they made Dragon Age, all these great RPGs. They're not gonna be making this new one. It's gonna be Aspyr Studios, basically people that have this really great track record of working on other RPGs or working on this. But Aspyr as a company, they're usually known for porting or facilitating titles to get to other platforms. They've done this with a couple of Star Wars titles like Republic Commando, so they have a relationship with the Star Wars universe, but they don't necessarily have experience of developing a title from the ground up, especially not one of this magnitude and this much hype. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that going forward. They have what I could lightly say as a uphill battle. Star Wars fans are notoriously hard to please. People are also worried because of Sam Mag's involvement in the writing team of this. Now, I don't know the scale of her involvement, but basically Star Wars fans already have a contentious relationship with her. But me personally, I know she was involved in the City That Never Sleeps DLC that came out on Spider-Man, and I was super underwhelmed with that story-wise, so it'll be interesting to see how this turns out going forward. What are they going to keep in terms of the things that made the original KOTOR great? Now, I know the big question on everyone's mind is Salute Guy going to be in this new series of games? I'm not sure, because Salute Guy obviously exists in the time period of The Mandalorian, which takes place after the fall of the Empire. So I don't know. I don't think we're gonna be seeing too much of him. Will we see his ancestors? There was a big NVIDIA leak of titles that are currently testing on PC right now, and there was all sorts of stuff on there, all sorts of Sony titles, all sorts of Xbox titles. There was a mention of Gears of War 6, which, other than the Coalition saying that it's gonna be made in Unreal Engine 5, I think this is the first mention of Gears of War 6 that we've had in a while. Also, Halo 5 Guardians showed up on this leak, and it's basically raising some questions because 343 has come out and said, no, we don't have any plans on bringing Halo 5 Guardians to PC. We're totally focused on Halo Infinite. But, you know, that's questionable because you have the Master Chief Collection on PC, so obviously it doesn't seem like too much of a jump for Halo 5 to be coming to PC as well. There was also a bunch of code names related to some really big Xbox titles coming up that was part of this leak as well. Project Holland, which we know is attached to the Fable reboot head by Playground Games. Project Typhoon, which we've seen in relation to Contraband. Project Woodstock, which we know has something to do with the Forza franchise. An unannounced title, which we are pretty sure is the Perfect Dark reboot. And also something called Oxide, which we believe is something related to something referred to as Project Indus, which is a strategy, tactics, city sim builder type of thing. So since then, NVIDIA has come out and said, guys, this is all speculative, this leak, it doesn't mean anything. We'll take that with a grain of salt, but it might be smart to wait for the actual publisher's comments on these titles being tested on PC before we jump to any conclusions. So I got to play through The Artful Escape, which is Annapurna's latest addition to Game Pass. And it's something that interested me from the trailer because I was really into the art style, I was really into the music, and I gotta say, I had a really good time with it. This is something, it's a very easy game, okay? So gameplay-wise, there's really nothing particularly fun or interesting about this. It's very basic platforming. It's very basic, like, play-along, Guitar Hero wannabe type button mashing thing. So basically the story of The Artful Escape follows Francis Vendetti, and your character is a folk musician that lives in a town called Calypso, Colorado. He has his first show coming up as part of this music festival, but he is the nephew of a very, 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 very famous and beloved folk musician known as Johnson Vendetti. Now, he's your uncle, and basically, you're living in the shadow of your uncle. Everyone expects you to be the next great folk musician and kind of carry on his legacy. But your character, he doesn't really want that. He doesn't really even want to play folk music. He wants to shred his guitar for some like crazy space opera type music. For me, it's a very relatable, very charming story of just wanting to reinvent yourself. That's something that at its core, I think everyone can relate to. So overall, I thought it was a really enjoyable experience. It was super relaxing. I thought it was really cool, and it's a short play, so you're really not losing out on too many hours, whether you like it or not. So in my previous video, I talked about how Xbox is gonna have some exclusive news and content for when they showcase at the Tokyo Game Show. Now we have an air date, so it's gonna be September 30th, Thursday, over at 6 p.m. in Japan. For us, specifically me, it's gonna be 2 a.m. and you know, I'm gonna tune in because I love Xbox and I want to support, but they've also come out and said that there's not going to be any crazy announcements. There's not going to be any new titles that are going to be announced. I think it's worth tuning into because there might be some other cool stuff being announced during the stream. For example, last year they debuted gameplay footage of Hyrule Warriors, so you never know what they're gonna show up with. Xbox Cloud Gaming is finally coming to Windows 10 devices. Previously, you were able to run it on your phone, on any tablet, but now you can run it through Windows 10 and any PCs. Obviously, some people are gonna find that more useful than others. Some people may not even use Xbox Cloud Gaming at all, but I just think it's a really cool option in terms of giving the players choices when it comes to how they want to play their games. So personally for me, I think it's cool having the option to play a game like Destiny 2 on my crappy laptop that normally wouldn't be able to run that game. And I also think it's cool seeing Xbox's effort to support their overall ecosystem rather than just the Xbox itself. So basically right now, if you want to expand your Xbox storage, you have to go through, most of the time, officially licensed partners of Xbox. So right now, that option is Seagate hard drives, which I think are cool. I think they look cool, they do a great job. People may not want to spend $200-300 on an external hard drive. So basically this guy on a blogging website in China called Bilibili, it's kind of like a YouTube blog hybrid type of deal. He broke down how you can use a regular solid state drive and make it compatible as an external hard drive right now. So basically what it boils down to is that he took a regular solid state drive and made it compatible with the Xbox Series X. And what that means is that there might be a market that pops up of just, you know, buying these third-party solid-state drives rather than buying the Seagate ones and making them compatible with all sorts of connectivity and dongle magic, which I don't understand myself. You know, there's an asterisk when it comes to this. There's only certain USBs that it's compatible with, and also Xbox can come in at any moment and just release a firmware update and make all of this null. So be careful before you splurge on any third-party solid-state drives. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Ray, and make sure you subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.